My name is Lily Hansen, and I'm 27 years old. The rain had been pouring down relentlessly all evening, matching the storm of emotions inside me. It was a quiet night in the city, the usual hustle replaced by an eerie calm. The lights from the office buildings reflected off the wet pavement, casting an almost ghostly glow on the streets. The world around me moved, but I stood still, uncertain yet determined. I had spent years climbing the ranks in the world of investigative journalism. I had faced challenges, rejections, and self-doubt. But I never gave up, always pushing forward, believing that the truth mattered and that it was worth fighting for. I was driven, ambitious, and perhaps too trusting for my own good. Jones Wood, my former editor and mentor, had been the one to teach me the ropes. I admired him, respected him, and above all, I trusted him. But that trust was shattered when I discovered he had stolen my work and taken credit for my most important investigation. The betrayal stung, and it set me on a path I hadn't anticipated, a path where revenge and justice blurred together. Despite my anger, I knew I couldn't let my emotions control me. I had always prided myself on being smart, resourceful, and strong. I was quick to analyze a situation and make decisions on the fly, but my impatience had sometimes worked against me. Now, that impatience would fuel my drive to expose Jones for what he truly was, a fraud hiding behind a mask of respectability. My goal now was clear: take back what was mine. To expose the lies, to bring the truth to light, and to show everyone that I could rise above the betrayal, stronger than ever. I didn't just want to succeed. I wanted to prove to myself and to the world that I was capable of handling whatever came my way. The city outside was still drenched in rain, but the storm in my heart was beginning to settle. I wasn't just fighting for revenge. I was fighting for my future, for my career, and for the truth. What I didn't know yet was just how far I was willing to go to get it. The moment it all changed came on an ordinary Thursday morning. I had spent the past week preparing a story that I knew would shake the foundations of local politics. It was my biggest break yet, a story I had poured my heart into, sleepless nights spent gathering evidence, talking to sources, piecing together a puzzle that had eluded others for years. It was a story that could change my career and earn me the respect I had been working for. But as I sat at my desk, sipping my coffee, a notification popped up on my screen, a headline with my name, but the byline read, Jones Wood. My heart stopped. It wasn't a mistake. It couldn't be. I clicked on the link, my hands trembling. The words I had written, the investigation I had worked tirelessly on, were right there. Only it wasn't my name attached to it. It was his. A sickening wave of disbelief crashed over me. I stared at the screen, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. The betrayal was so cold, so deliberate. Jones, the man I had trusted, the one who had mentored me, had stolen my story, my work, and taken full credit for it. It was more than just professional dishonesty. It felt like a personal betrayal. The one person I had looked up to, the one person who had promised to guide me, had turned his back on me in the worst way possible. The fury inside me was instantaneous, like a switch had been flipped. My first reaction was anger, hot, visceral anger that burned through me in a matter of seconds. I felt betrayed not just as a journalist, but as a human being. The years of loyalty, the trust I had placed in him, all of it had been a lie. How could I have been so blind? But then, as the initial shock wore off, something else settled in: determination. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to watch him take everything from me. This wasn't just about a stolen story. It was about my career, my reputation, and my future. If I didn't fight back, I would lose everything I had worked for. I could have quit. I could have walked away, let it go, and let the world see Jones as the successful journalist he pretended to be. But I wasn't the type to roll over and accept defeat. The moment he betrayed me was the moment I made a choice. I was going to take him down. I didn't just want my story back. I wanted to show him, and everyone else, that I was capable of standing up for myself and my work. The conflict was clear now. I had everything to lose and everything to gain. If I failed, I risked losing my career, my credibility, and my future in journalism. But if I succeeded, I would not only reclaim what was mine, but I would expose Jones for the fraud he truly was. It wasn't just a professional battle anymore. It was personal. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined, and I was ready to fight. The phone rang. It was my colleague Max. He had seen the same article, and the concern in his voice was palpable. "Lily, you need to confront him. You can't let this slide." He was right. There was no backing down. I had been dealt a blow, but I was about to deal one back. This was just the beginning. The real story, my story, was only getting started. As I pushed forward, each day became an unpredictable game of cat and mouse. My journey to uncover Jones's corruption was no longer just about exposing the truth. It was about surviving it. With every new discovery, the stakes escalated. The weight of what I was trying to achieve started to settle heavily on my shoulders. But despite the mounting pressure, I refused to let go of my goal. I had been wronged, and I would make sure that Jones would pay for it. The first challenge I faced came in the form of a phone call from Anna. She had been doing some digging of her own, looking into Jones's backstory, and had uncovered something troubling. "Lily," she said in a voice tinged with concern, "you're not just dealing with a corrupt editor anymore. Jones has connections, powerful ones, who will stop at nothing to protect him. You need to be careful." Her warning was unsettling. I had already known that Jones was dangerous, but now I understood the true extent of the forces I was up against. It wasn't just a matter of getting my story back. It was about exposing an entire network of corruption. Jones was just the tip of the iceberg. What I didn't expect was how personal the stakes would become. Shortly after that conversation, my work phone was hacked. Files I had been saving about Jones's connections were wiped out, and several of my articles that had yet to be published, were altered. I knew instantly that this was his doing. He had somehow found a way to infiltrate my work, and now I pushed forward despite the doubts. Each day felt like a test of my resolve. There were moments when it seemed like everything was falling apart. Jones had caught wind of my investigation, and he was actively sabotaging my efforts. He sent threats, veiled ones at first, then more direct, warning me to back off or face the consequences. I had to find a way to outsmart him. I couldn't allow fear to dictate my actions, but the reality of what I was facing was starting to sink in. Jones wasn't just an antagonist in my story. He was a force that threatened everything I had worked for. Then came a breakthrough, a small victory that breathed new life into my investigation. I received a tip-off from a mysterious informant who had once been part of Jones's inner circle. This person had the information I needed to bring down not just Jones, but the entire network of corruption he was part of. But there was a catch. The informant was scared, terrified that coming forward would lead to retribution. They needed my protection, but I couldn't guarantee their safety. The moral dilemma was heavy. Could I ask someone else to risk their life for my cause? Could I, in good conscience, put anyone else in harm's way for the sake of my revenge? I had to make a decision. With every choice I made, the stakes grew higher. The line between right and wrong started to blur, and I found myself in the middle of a fight for justice and survival. The closer I got to the truth, the more dangerous it became. And Jones, my once trusted mentor, had become the very person I had to defeat. He was the embodiment of everything that was wrong with the system I had chosen to work in, and taking him down was no longer just about my personal betrayal. It was about something much larger. It was about making sure the truth had a chance to be heard. With the pieces starting to fall into place, I knew the final confrontation was coming. But I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. I was prepared for the battle, but I wasn't prepared for the consequences. And the deeper I dug, the more I realized that the price of exposing the truth might be more than I was willing to pay. The air was thick with tension as I stood in front of Jones's office, my heart racing. This was the moment I had been preparing for, the confrontation that would determine not just my career, but the future of everything I had worked for. I knew what I had to do. I had gathered the evidence, crossed every line of moral grayness, and now, standing at the edge of this battle, it all came down to one thing: taking him down. I had spent months tracking down the secret dealings Jones had been a part of, each new discovery adding more weight to the case. I had dug deep, exposed the corrupt system he was entangled in, and compiled evidence strong enough to bring down an empire. But now, facing him face to face, I realized the true scale of the confrontation. Jones sat behind his polished mahogany desk, his expression unreadable. His calm demeanor only heightened the storm brewing inside me. He knew I was coming for him. After all, he had been watching me from the shadows, orchestrating every move I made with precision. This wasn't just a journalistic investigation anymore. It was personal. It was a battle for my career, my integrity, and my life. "You think you can take me down, Lily?" His voice was a low, cold drawl, devoid of any emotion. "You think your little story will change anything?" I took a step forward, forcing myself to meet his gaze. The fear I had been carrying for months started to dissolve into something else. Anger. Determination. The fear of failure was overshadowed by the certainty that I had reached the point of no return. This wasn't just about a story anymore. This was about revenge, about taking back what he had stolen from me. "I don't think, Jones," I said, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. "I know." The words hung in the air, charged with a heavy sense of finality. I had the documents, the proof, the allies to back me up. All that was left was to expose him, to tear down the facade of power and control he had built. But Jones wasn't going to let this go without a fight. His eyes flickered with something dark, and I saw it. Fear. He was scared of losing everything. "You've come too far, Lily," he said, his voice tinged with something darker than anger. "You've crossed a line you can't come back from. You think this is just a game. I've already buried people like you." I didn't flinch. I had heard it all before. The threats, the intimidation. But this time, I wasn't backing down. I had nothing left to lose. He had already taken my trust, my career, and my dignity. The only thing left for me was to win. This wasn't just a story anymore. This was my life, my future, and my chance for redemption. With a swift motion, I placed the file on his desk. The documents were the key to unraveling everything. Jones's involvement in political scandals, his connections with corrupt officials, and the dark side of his empire. I watched his face change as he looked at the evidence. Shock, then realization, followed by pure rage. "You think you can do this to me?" His voice cracked, betraying the mask he had carefully constructed for so long. You have no idea what you're getting into. The weight of his words hung in the room like a heavy cloud. But I was beyond fear now. I had crossed that line months ago. This wasn't about a story anymore. It was about justice. It was about making sure that no one else would suffer the way I had. Jones's empire had to fall. You had a chance to make things right, Jones, I said, my voice trembling with the emotion I had been holding in for so long. But you chose to betray me. And now, I'm making sure that the world knows who you really are. The confrontation escalated quickly, Jones's anger flaring as he lunged towards the file. I had already taken the necessary steps. I had contacted the right people, and the information was already being shared with those who could make it public. It was too late for him to stop me now. The floodgates had opened, and his world was about to come crashing down. The immediate fallout was swift and unforgiving. Within hours, the story was picked up by every major news outlet. Jones's reputation crumbled as the truth about his corrupt dealings and abuse of power spread like wildfire. The power he had once held over the media, over politics, evaporated in the face of the undeniable proof I had presented. As for me, I stood there in the aftermath, watching as everything I had worked for, everything I had fought for, came to fruition. The victory felt hollow at first. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my voice, my career, and my future. It was about finally standing tall after everything he had done to tear me down. But the emotional toll was real. The battle had taken everything from me, my peace of mind, my trust in others, and my belief in the system. But I had done what I set out to do. I had exposed the truth. I had taken my revenge. And as Jones's empire crumbled, I realized that this moment, this victory, was only the beginning. The future was mine to shape. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about building something new, something better. And that was a story I was ready to write. The dust had finally settled. The storm I had stirred up was over, and as I walked away from Jones's crumbled empire, I felt a sense of finality, but not the kind I had expected. The weight of my victory, hard won and long fought for, pressed down on me. I had brought Jones to justice, exposed his corruption, and reclaimed my career, but the emotional toll was something I hadn't fully anticipated. In the weeks following the exposure, I watched as the industry I had once admired began to shift. Jones was out of the picture, and the political scandal he had been involved in slowly unraveled, piece by piece. It was a strange feeling, knowing that my efforts had made such an impact. But there was no celebrating, no relief. There was only the knowledge that I had done what I set out to do. My revenge had been served, but it wasn't just about taking down the person who betrayed me anymore. It was about something bigger. I had spent so long focused on the past, on the injustice that had been done to me, that I hadn't allowed myself to see how much I had grown. I had become stronger, more confident, and far more resilient. I had faced my fears, my insecurities, and the betrayal of someone I had once trusted implicitly. And I had emerged from it not just victorious, but changed. I was no longer the journalist who had once felt powerless in the face of a corrupt system. I was someone who had learned the hard way that the truth always comes to light, and that no one, no matter how powerful, could hide behind lies forever. The industry was not the same anymore, and neither was I. As I sat in my new office at the rival news outlet, looking out at the bustling city below, I allowed myself a brief moment of reflection. The skyline stretched out before me, full of endless possibilities. It was a sharp contrast to the dark days I had spent locked in my old office, consumed by the need for revenge, consumed by the anger that had once ruled my every decision. But now it was different. I had come to terms with what had happened. The scars of betrayal were still there, but they no longer defined me. The bitterness, the rage, I had let it all go. And in its place, I had found something I had never expected: peace. A quiet confidence that I could handle whatever the world threw my way, because I had already faced the worst of it. I stood up, walked over to the window, and took a deep breath. The future was uncertain, but I no longer feared it. I had proven to myself that I was capable of overcoming any obstacle, no matter how insurmountable it seemed. And with that, I realized something else. I was ready to move forward. I had taken my revenge, but now I was ready to build, to forge my path, not in the shadow of betrayal, but in the light of everything I had achieved. The lessons I had learned about trust, about integrity, about strength, would guide me through whatever came next. And as I looked out at the city, I knew that I was just getting started. The future was mine to shape, and this time I would do it on my terms.